You know, it really doesn't make sense, though, this refusal of our Western mind to contemplate our own demise. We go to our philosophers, we go to our scientists, and you know what? Bright, bright minds, but every single one of them, that I've read anyway, who have tackled the hard questions of life, ultimately, they come up short. They cannot solve the enigma or the riddle of death. Bright and articulate atheists, secular thinkers, no matter how eloquent and logical they are, when they come to finis, as the French put it, when they come to the end, they simply do not know what next to say. But I tell you what, my friends, any philosophy, can I put this on the screen? Any philosophy, any belief system that doesn't answer the fundamental question of death does not answer the fundamental question of life. You've got to deal with death if you want to live life to its very fullest, as our oncologist said just a moment ago. I've had the, can I put it this way, sacred honor of standing behind the sterile curtain of an ICU, intensive care unit. I've stood there with a wife and her 3 children. The man lying on that bed is a friend of mine. The wife's invited me to be present. You see, the family has wrestled over what they should do. And they've made the decision because the doctors have said, there's nothing more we can do. He's being kept alive. I've stood there with the family as that white-clad medical technologist slips in and steps over to where a bank of switches is. And I've watched him switch, 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 turning off the life support. At that moment, as the family bursts into tears, the most brilliant philosopher, the most erudite scientist in the world, dear sir, dear madam, what will you now offer with your worldview to this grieving family? What do we say? It's inevitable. I have watched death steal over a warm human form. What's the meaning of life in the face of death? Well, if you have the standard scientific model, well, someday they're going to throw the switch, not on life support, but for the whole universe. Finis, for everything. That's that worldview. On the other hand, and I need to tell you that I believe there is an on the other hand. And the reason I believe in this on the other hand is because this one simply suggests that a man named Jesus of Nazareth once upon a time did confront human death, and in that confrontation found a way through human death. I want to take a moment and unpack that for you. There's something else beyond death, and it's that inner, that numinous question that the human race lives with that I want to pursue for the few moments we have left together. Karen and I had the privilege of being here in England once on Easter weekend. Coventry Cathedral, one of your beautiful, rather contemporary cathedrals, isn't it? We watched as they went through the celebration of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. You know that Christians believe that Jesus died and that within 3 days he rose again. I want to go to that resurrection theme for just a moment. C.S. Lewis. Are you acquainted with C.S. Lewis? Of course, one of the greatest Christian apologists of the 20th century. Before he became a believer, as it were, in Jesus Christ, he was visiting with an atheist scholar friend of his, and they were chatting together when all of a sudden, in the midst of their conversation, this friend, this colleague of his says, well, you know, old chap, there really is an incredible amount of historical evidence to back up the resurrection of Jesus Christ 3 days after his death. And with that, he just dropped the subject. Just went on his merry old way, having stated that one affirmation, and switched to maybe it was the latest cricket match scores. It was just gone. I mean, that would be like you and me sitting down for a supper conversation, and I said, and I say, listen, you know, today I couldn't believe I saw 3 little aliens come out of that UFO, and would you pass me the salt, please? I want to, I mean, what's up with that? Just no conversation. The guy just went on. But C.S. Lewis, this atheist himself, began to ponder, well, wait a minute. If my colleague's observations are true, if someone indeed raised from the dead after 3 days, wouldn't that be an utterly incredible event? And if in fact it did take place, wouldn't there be some rather mind-blowing implications? This brilliant mind, teaching at Oxford University, begins to rehearse and return to that suggestion. Wait a minute, if somebody was living 2,000 years ago and then after 3 days rose back to life, maybe there is a whole nother worldview than the one I've considered. You have to think about it. You would have to agree in thinking about it as well, that if a resurrection did take place, it would certainly be without or outside the parameters of natural law and science, wouldn't it? But of course, science cannot reproduce a resurrection. They've tried. It's humanly impossible. If it took place, we might even use the word miracle, wouldn't we? Because we can't explain it. Yeah. So, oh, well, boy, don't get into that miracle business. Well, let's just, hold on. Let's talk about William Shakespeare, the greatest literary gift of the English to human civilization, William Shakespeare. You know, he wrote a play. What was the name of the play? The Tempest. Let's take The Tempest. Are you Shakespeareans here? You're not? Well, good. Then you won't know if I'm telling you the truth or not. Let's take The Tempest, which is about a band of people on an enchanted isle where a duke called Prospero wields magic powers over the elements. And there are others in the play. There is Ariel, a sprite, and Caliban, and various spirits among other people. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you suppose that William Shakespeare believed the characters as presented in his play were real? Did he believe it? Well, it's possible, I suppose. It's like some of his histories. It might have been based on real-life people he was imagining, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, did Shakespeare believe that what he had written was, in fact, an accurate reflection of reality? That there are sprites, and that there are spirits such as Juno and Ceres and Iris, and these are all real, and those miracles and illusions that took place were actual events. Do you believe Shakespeare believed that? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, give me an answer. No, of course not. Of course not. He didn't believe it. And yet, if he did, and was trying to assert that to you, you'd say he spent too much time down at the Globe. He needs to take a little bit of R&R back at Stratford. He's been too long in that playwriting business. Of course he didn't believe it. But suppose he was so sure that they were real that he was willing to risk his life, his career, and everything in defense of the Tempest. What then? We'd say, well, the man has gone loony. It can't be true. But if he were willing to lose his family and his job and his status in society over that, well, he may be loony, but obviously he believes it very deeply, doesn't he? Now I want you to hold that Shakespeare moment, and let me introduce now 4 individuals who wrote personal accounts of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Their names, Matthew, Mark, we put them on the screen here, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All of them declared that they witnessed Jesus resurrected from the dead. And each one bore the testimony that, in fact, he was raised from the dead. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if one person had made that assertion, you can dismiss it. It's just one guy, I mean, please. But you have 4 here. All 4 testimonies corroborated